Meetings law to discuss, comment, or take action at this meeting on any issue raised by public comment that is not part of tonight's agenda.
Hi, John Levine. I live here in Littleton. I like to try and pay attention. I've been away a few months, so I'm here to find out what y'all been up to.
Okay. And see how do this for the record. My name is Pam Chadbourne. I live a block or two from here. And first, Chair, thank you for giving the late arriving member their table label. The table labels are good for the record, the video record. And so I really appreciate keeping that record and letting the public know what's going on. And for taking roll, just getting people's names down. I am concerned that several boards, not just environmental stewardship, are being left out of the city's planning process, such as it is. Environmental stewardship should be part of the concept plans of a whole bunch of things that have passed through the city in the time of existence of ESB. The ESB hasn't been included in those. Again, it's not alone. Historic Preservation Board has been included in planning processes that are going on. Transportation Mobility Board has not been included. I'm going to tell you a real management process for developing new work includes a concept phase, which is at a high level, and then a preliminary design phase, and then a final phase. And all parties form a integrated, complete vision of and concept of what a project is going to be. You know what we have now is something that barely gets to you at the last minute and then goes to the city council. That is inadequate and wrong. And Littleton must have more or we're gonna destroy the city. I mean, I do mean that. And I think you guys are here because you care about the future of the city. The process is broken. And so we have a management challenge here. Specifically, I'm going to mention Arts and Culture Board has, for one thing, has its own money from the lodger's tax, and has this concept of murals and sculptures all over the place. The DDA has its own money. It has a concept for Geneva Park of putting sculptures and stuff all over the place. Of course, we would get rid of this property in Geneva Village and lose all of that shared open space. And then Geneva Park should be a place for sculptures and drawings and art. I don't think so. We need nature. We need nature integrated into our neighborhoods, all the more important in a densifying downtown. Have you been included in these discussions? No. You don't know about them and you don't have your own money. So first off, preserve Geneva Village, preserve the shared open and this property, the shared open space, the landscaping and all of that. I don't care that staff doesn't want to do it. These are legitimate functions for a city and we can afford them and we should do them. So I just want to make you aware of that danger and that you're not being included in the planning and we must get your input in our projects. Thanks.
All right, the next item on our agenda is discussion topics. The first one being the South Metro Waste Diversion Timeline Review. So I think I will hand it over to Laura for that.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna share with y'all now what I'm planning to present to council, but I just really want to give you the high level overview because you've kind of heard me beat this over the head, but the study session, as you know, in July went well, and just due to a number of other boxes gonna ever. We'll see. Oh, there we go. That's about as good as it's gonna get. A number of other initiatives were coming, back in October for plan adoption. And so I'm just gonna take them through. There we go. Like understanding essentially like why we're there, and it's for them to adopt the plan by resolution. But kind of the section I really wanted to show y'all and make sure that everyone sort of understood where ESB could really help is next year, we're really looking at community outreach and engagement and hauler licensing. And so I actually have an activity for us to do some community outreach and engagement planning together. And then the hauler licensing will be kind of a larger conversation of figuring out what those requirements are. And it's technically under a business license, which happens once a year. So would likely actually start the process in 2027 of like their license, but teeing it all up in 2026 to figure out what those requirements are. And so that's just gonna at least get us a list of like 6 haulers, right? Down from the non-existent no list that we don't have of 17 haulers maybe. So they have to then go through a series of screenings, and there will hopefully be enforcement. And hopefully with the fees that they would have to pay, that would then help fund something to help actually support all of this workflow. It's kind of the overall idea of that. So that's kind of a step one to hopefully get towards organized collection, but I think it's, kind of a necessary step of the in-between. It's not, this is kind of more politically appealing. Do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I just think that we need to make sure we do the right outreach and engagement so that I have, not only council support, but the rest of the residents before we move forward with anything like organized collection.
Yeah, I think the big piece to remember is that while all of you have heard me say this a million times, and anyone that's been engaged with council, that not everyone has the opportunity or the free time to do so, but everyone has trash. So trying to figure out how we're gonna reach audiences in more unique ways, because that's actually gonna lead to higher waste diversion rates, because people will hopefully care or understand, or there'll be more of that conversation and prep rather than just one day all of a sudden your hauler's no longer licensed, so you have to switch to one of these. There's hopefully a little bit of that lead up. So I'm definitely gonna lean on y'all for support. And I'm still talking to the other municipalities, so Sheridan, Englewood, and Centennial, about figuring out if there's like shared messaging that we're gonna do for commercial and multifamily, just because everything is kind of a little bit different in those realms. I'm pretty sure they still have to follow the license, like the business, they'd have to pick someone from the business licensing. But if we were to go organized collection, they can, as y'all know, opt out, and many of them do, even though it'd be cheaper for their residents. It's just, change is hard, all of the things. And so making sure that we're bringing them along with us and helping them realize that it could be cheaper and easier for them. And also, because there's a lot of those big buildings that don't have even like recycling at a base level right now, not only in Littleton, but like all over Colorado, because they don't have to.
Would the hauler licensing also include commercial and business, or is the whole, like, 'cause since you kind of phrased it as like a business license, right? So it's like, at this point, would we be setting down a line that says, if you want to operate as a hauler in any waste capacity in the city of Littleton, you have to have this specific business license? Is that?
I feel pretty confident that that's the case, because they would have to use someone, like they'd have to provide us insurance, right? And all of this would help hopefully with the amount that we have to repave streets, which is for the environment, to tear up all that cement with all of these different trucks. So like at a base level, I think that they would all have to comply with this, whereas there's just a funky Colorado law for the organized collection for whatever reason, but I think this is a good first stepping stone.
When you say funky, so like when you say like, is it like an HOA type organized collection? So if an HOA has already said, okay, we're gonna go with hauler XYZ.
There's like I can track down the legal language, but there's like a specific law that says like HOAs can exempt themselves and anyone and their entity. Anything that's a commercial entity can exempt themselves, and so anything that's seven.
But that doesn't, like, the caveat for business license though.
Is it's not the same, because it's
Yeah.
not the same type of contracting.
Okay.
Like it would
So
just.
it would basically kind of a little bit gap that, or like help
Yeah.
cover that gap.
It should, theoretically, I think the other part is like using that fee to figure out if like, do we need someone else in compliance to help us with that? Like, what is that enforcement gonna look like? Because, you know, if people can still get away with things, they're going to. And so that's also gonna be maybe like figuring out how we can talk to HOAs or neighborhoods or associations kind of ahead of some of this so that it's a little less shocking. Maybe there's like a little bit more of a phased approach. Because no matter that we've been doing this study since February 2024, it's not like they've been like, oh, I wonder how the waste diversion study is going.
Yeah.
Right? They might not even know this exists. They probably don't.
And then are y'all able to, or are we able to kind of design this specific business license in whatever way we want, in the sense that like, okay, you know, we want you to track certain things or prove, you know, audit where you're sending your, you know, whatever it is, like.
We'll have to approve it. Like, we have to go back to, so this plan for adoption is them saying like, okay, you can move full steam ahead to figure out these pieces, but we're still gonna have to go back for any type of adoption.
Okay.
So like either through study session and ordinance, or either through like some type of adoption that they're
But
going.
it's not just like a sign up for a business license and just put your name and number down.
No, we would have very specific requirements, and if they cannot prove that they can meet said requirements and they don't pay, so you, like, usually cities like have some type of fee per truck. Because each truck has a specific weight that they put onto the road and the city infrastructure. So that's not only city resources, bad for the environment, it's also taxpayer resources. And so saying like, hey, you actually have to pay into this so that you can figure out a more efficient system because it's gonna be beneficial for you, is kind of like what I've seen at least other cities have done. And like,
I was gonna say, I imagine that we'll bring back any hauler licensing back to this group to get your input on.
definitely, like similar to anything else, I would probably bring you a draft and like get input, because
Well, and I think I'm also asking the question because it's not that I necessarily think it's like a bad step towards more of the organized collection, but part of me is like, why don't we just jump to that? But I know that, you know, there's obviously political implications.
But the whole goal here is to limit it to 6 or some number of haulers that are licensed to do business in the city.
yeah, right now there's no licensing, you can just operate in the.
But there's these anomalies of people opting out and using whoever they want still.
I don't think that they could do that with the business license. I think that would be actually a benefit of doing that and then eventually, hopefully, organized collection, because they could opt out of organized collection. But I don't think they can say, we're gonna use a business that's not legal, like that legally can't operate here. Like, I think that that actually could be the best workaround to figure out how to at least limit the number of trucks when we're talking about commercial and HOAs. Like, this is a good first step. It doesn't really, to me, it doesn't take away people's choice, I hope, too much, because they still could have, you know, six organizations. It's just maybe on the city website when you move here, there's like, hey, these are one of the 6, here are the numbers. Like, they might have to have a little bit more accountability in that sense.
Which in some ways I also see as a good step, because at that point, then there's kind of like a proof to us that you do a good job. And then when it does come to more of the contracted single hauler, potentially, you could say like, okay, yep, company A did really well, but company B really hasn't been turning in their data on time, you know, whatever. So
Yeah, or it's like, it's been really hard for us to communicate and track down this like bare minimum requirement, or, yeah, having something in place. It's like, if you don't give us a notice and pay for these, it's probably gonna be annual fees, so hopefully that wouldn't be too big of a deal. And many others, like Englewood already has this in place.
they just have license, like
And it was
license.
not controversial for them at all. Like, it was just it was very normal for them to go forward with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my understanding. And so Centennial, does not have it either, and so they're gonna kind of have a similar timeline to us next year. And so I'm definitely gonna be working with them some on what that messaging also looks like for that outreach. And I might also just talk to Englewood and see, like, I've already sort of seen the breakdown of their revenue and different finances. And also figure out a little bit like, how did y'all do this? Like, what did you learn? And also, I mean, Boulder's also done this, but they did it, I think, in the 80s or 90s. So, you know, a little bit different than Englewood, who did it like maybe a couple of years ago.
And remind me, Sheridan has single hauler.
Sheridan does.
Or the, consider an equal space ordinance
Mm-hmm.
is, I think it's very important because there's a lot of waste is generated there. But those folks, they live in, multifamily, right? So I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, those multifamilies are not, they're not under the laws of what the city of Littleton's gonna do with waste.
So they would definitely have to follow the licensing that we're talking about. If we went to an organized collection, they would not. The equal space is a little different and it could only apply to new developments, but it basically says that, so like, say there's like a back alley that has a giant dumpster, then they have to have an equal amount of space for the dumpster and the recycling.
Once they do that, then they have to consider the hauling contract that the city has.
There's no way for me to do it.
Okay.
Single hauler, right, there's some, is it 8 units?
Yeah, if you're seven, I think it's seven plus.
So I was surprised to see 38%. Littleton.
Yeah.
It's quite a bit.
Yeah, so 7+ is like legally, this is true across Colorado, I guess, is considered.
So there's no way to put them under.
They can opt in. They can say like, yes, we wanna opt into your contract, we're actually gonna wait until our current contract ends and then we'll opt in. They don't have to. So they don't, and that's like kind of also what that's what I'm seeing in Denver is they're like, well, composting is required. I live somewhere that has 10+ units. And let me tell you, composting, like I go and drop it off at that sketchy back alley, like it's not a required thing because wherever I live opted out. And I'm a renter from an owner, it's a whole thing, but like that's kind of how it goes, is if you don't have any like power over that decision. Then that's sort of where I feel like that some of this outreach could come from, because I do think it would lower rates, particularly because of the extended producer responsibility law that's supposed to cover recycling. And so if they're on a city contract that could get the best price, it'd probably lower the rates for the people that live there. And so I feel like that in and of itself would be attractive. It's just getting that outreach and education so that they understand it's not just like a bureaucratic change for fun.
And then I guess a lot of people don't believe that recycling actually happens, even though they put it into this particular.
Yeah, that's a different issue, but also an issue, and a really big problem.
It'll
And so
be somewhat addressed in the licensing potentially in some capacity.
I think so. I think the other really attractive part of an organized collection is then you would have unified guidelines, right?
Mhm.
The idea of being like, you two are neighbors, and you're like, hey, can you recycle this thing? It's like, actually, yeah, you can. I know that to be true. Or there's a website that says, this is what you can and can't recycle. And I mean, they have those for like the specific waste companies, but like, you gotta be someone like me if you're like going to the specific waste website of your hauler and being like, can this be recycled or not? The fact that I like dry it out, like that's a specific subset of the population, but I think that can be part and should be part of our education outreach. And the bigger portion is like knowing the things that are easier to recycle: cardboard, paper, glass, aluminum, like all of those things have very high recycling rates. What doesn't is plastic. And really what would be helpful is if people stop buying plastic things and like as much as you can, or figuring out like, you know, when you do have it, if that's something you compile for hard to recycle or something like that type of event. But it's really hard to completely avoid plastic, obviously, in this society, so. But that's usually the recycling that it has that lower rate. They're gonna start charging more for producers that bring plastic into Colorado, so they're charging like by how easy and it is to recycle the material, so it's gonna be more expensive for producers to use plastic, but also to use like, what really gets it is like plastic mixed with like some other material, mixed with like, oh, it actually is a waxy coat on the side, or whatever the case is. And so the more that all those materials are combined, I'm pretty sure that the more that those producers are supposed to be charged.
Or just thinking in terms of practicalities, since the Environmental Stewardship Board has identified waste diversion effort as priority, and since there's an election coming up in November, and since we shouldn't take anything politically for granted, is there a way that staff could get in front of the new council in January or thereabouts, or get us as a board in front of the new council and take their temperature and gauge the appetite for some of the central features of this?
I don't know if it'll be January, but I bet we could probably get you to the first quarter.
Yeah, February, March.
Yeah.
I don't see why not. I mean, I would love that. I'm sure that would be helpful to figure out exactly what their appetite is. And I mean, some of this is just, you know, like leveraging the Colorado's extended producer responsibility law. Like, a lot of it's monetary. Like, we're gonna save people money. It's just sort of figuring out if that's the argument and like the angle we wanna go for versus an environmental angle. There's like lots of ways we can do it.
I think the number one angle should always be the financial angle, for sure.
Yeah. True.
It usually is more.
Like, then you can talk about the other things as well, but
You'll save money and. Yeah, and so like the,
Got their attention.
and you'll have the people that are concerned about free market and everything, that's gonna catch their attention way more than emissions or something like that.
I think so too.
So I also saw that food waste is a big deal. It's a lot. It's one of the most the largest thing in the waste stream. So people throw out that much food. Is that what's going on?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And yard waste, that's the other big organic.
For sure. I think it's just, yeah, people don't, I guess if you don't compost, the other reason the composting is pushed further out is you need to do way more education outreach even than recycling, because at the very least, a recycling company, or like when it goes through the stream, like there are like little robots, or like the weight, they're like, or there's actual people. I've been in tour facilities and there's someone like yanking off, they're like, not recycling, not recycling, not recycling. With organics, it starts to break down. And so if you contaminate that, it's much higher stakes. And so you need people that are gonna do it right. You don't need like free-for-alls happening with like animal bones happening in like people's combos, because then other people buy it back and they use it, you know, like what we're hoping eventually would be to have people like grow their stuff with actual compost soil, which would be awesome, but we want to make sure it's.
Well, and the larger scale, what infrastructure for composting isn't as robust as it is for like recycling or trash right now, so maybe by that time frame there will be more.
Heard rumblings of a state bill that they're trying to put feelers out for an organics ban, but we'll see.
I know Waste Management is actually starting.
Organics ban, like a organic landfill.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that it's like illegal to put any organic matter into the landfill that could be composted. How the heck that'll happen, similar to how this is gonna happen with everyone gets free recycling, is gonna be such an interesting policy challenge, but hey, sounds like maybe they wanna try to do it. I don't know with what money, but
I think they'll get a lot of money from EPR, so I'll be interested to see if that's, you know, ends up benefiting that.
anything else, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of the rollout. I wish I could like do it all at the same time, but I don't think people are ready for it. And also where I need y'all's help if you hear people that are like, this is crazy, like figuring out if there are those corners of the community that we can like go and talk to people and actually help them understand, or what that might look like. Also like trying to figure out how to meet people where they're at, either physically or mentally, all of the above, just cause yeah, as much as some people might not want to talk about it, it is everyone has trash, so it does technically affect everyone. That's also like why I kind of put like a little, cause I know everyone wants to, on this council wants to move super quick and they're like, we want it all now, but I'm kind of like, here's why it makes sense that we are moving slower with this. We also only have like, what was it, one fee
No, we-
session or something
No,
a year?
we adopt, all the fees one time a year, and that's usually
So if we tee it up for next year, we have to like,
The business fees, you mean, or like business?
Like every fee, yeah.
yeah, all at the same time. And yeah, we wanna coordinate regionally, that also takes more time and means we have 4 councils that we're looking at, for some of it, so. Yeah, I think it's like chipping away at goals, and it's gonna be, yeah, nice and slow. So this is what I'm asking them to adopt it, and then we're gonna do sort of that coordination of outreach and education, and then hopefully developing hauler licensing next year. I might need to move the timeline. I realized the
Well,
Eagles.
isn't it like a licensing process along with, you have to kind of put a RFP out if you wanna haul trash. You have to do an RFP and you've gotta get licensed. It's a both end, right?
Would you have to do an RFP for licensing?
Not for licensing.
Just
No,
for,
just
just
for
if it
contracted
contracted.
hauling. This is very confusing and so niche. You don't like have to memorize it, but it's like, yeah, because that would be under like a business license. So it's not.
They're not requiring anyone to use like a specific hauler. The contracted hauling is more like choosing 1 or 2 or maybe 3 haulers to say, you as a resident now have to choose between these 3 haulers that we've contracted with. That would require an RFP.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you have to get down to that. So
But the business licensing would not require it.
no. But if it's a new requirement, maybe not all haulers want to do that, is all I'm saying. So that's why, yeah, the RFP process, who's interested?
They might not all be able to qualify under the business under the.
Exactly.
business license.
Exactly, that, so. It is a both end.
I don't think we have to do anything.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
think it-
obviously, okay, so we adopt this, it's gotta go through council as an ordinance, so it's still a public process, but it's not like a advertisement for.
It wouldn't go on bid
proposal.
yet.
Yeah, it wouldn't go on bid.
Like no one would bid on it because we're not selecting. Like they are opting in to be like, yeah, we agree to these terms and conditions, I guess.
Yeah.
Is the
Yeah,
difference.
more like that.
But then if we were to go contracted, it would definitely have to be an RFP, and that process takes much longer. Usually a year for contracted hauling, as you pointed out.
Yeah, so the hauler licensing would be by ordinance, and that requires 2 public hearings with city council, and so that's how that would get adopted.
I'd probably bring it to y'all before the hearings, we can probably also in study session before the readings,
Yeah,
so.
there'll be a lot of public outreach for it.
Uh-huh.
But yeah.
And I mean, I've tried to figure out who all of the haulers are and I've gotten really close. I think there might be a few there's a few that claim they aren't haulers, but they are. I don't know. It's an interesting conversation, but we're gonna, I guess, figure out that piece too with them. They've all gotten voicemails from me from the greenhouse gas inventory, so. And that would be another really great benefit is if they had to report waste tonnage, so we can actually have baseline data, not only for my inventory, but like to know how we're doing as a city. Are we like actually meeting these goals? Is there, data to support, and also that can help lead us to actual reimbursements from the state. If we're able to show them recycling rates, they can reimburse, but they cannot do that if they don't know what's recycling versus trash. They're just gonna, I guess they're gonna deal with those communities last. So right now we're on the list of being last for anything like that. But hopefully we can slowly move up and get for recycling. Yeah. That's kind of it for this.
I was looking at this afternoon for, put your presentations in a library somewhere that I could. You have such a.
So I guess,
Let's say the whole meeting is archived.
Yeah, but I'd have to go through. I had tape, right, to get here.
yeah,
I would just like to go through the slides.
I would ask if we can archive like a SharePoint.
I think we have one that was from before I started. Like, I think I found
There
it.
was one, and then I get some circular logic. site, so
Uh-huh.
I go round and around.
No, I'm aware of the logic.
Is it different than city council meetings? I mean, city council meetings just, I mean, right next to the video, you get like a link.
That's true, yeah.
Are we doing it?
Yeah.
All the files are uploaded.
I tried to, so I created a separate page because I was confused by the logic, hopefully making that logic make more sense, but it still links to the original logic, cause that's where we're at. But maybe there's a way to figure out if that old resource library could be brought back. I know that if I request after the fact for slides to go up, usually they do.
What about, like, I'm just looking at the ESB meeting and it has like related information and it'll have the recordings and it also has like the agenda.
Mhm.
Could it just be that, hey, this was presented during it, so like post it there as like a, like, I mean, I like the idea of having a library, but at the same time, it's nice, you could say like, okay, I know in October we looked at this, so
Yes.
going back and seeing like that, the PDF of this presentation under that meeting.
I can see what I can figure out.
'Cause I do think that'd be helpful. It almost ends up being like the city council packet to an extent.
Right. You know, cause I submit for those packets.
So it seems like being able to add an additional file to like that meeting would be beneficial.
Easy to
Yeah,
get.
yeah. It's already there, we don't have to create a new.
Right.
Yeah, cause I usually email y'all, but that doesn't mean it gets to anyone but this group, so.
Yeah.
And also that means you have to dig through your city email.
Yeah.
Which, as fun as that sounds.
And if education is one of the big pieces, like making it accessible and easy to find
Right.
for everyone.
Right. I'll just start making that part of my workflow, so that I'll add them on. Does that make sense to do it with
That's
each
great.
meeting, so that it's packet agenda as part of it?
It's perfect.
Okay. Great. Let's see. Oh, I didn't, these are like the regional ones, sorry, the one's supposed to go away. As best I can. And so next year, we're definitely gonna be doing that, increasing the efforts for multifamily and commercial access, and I think it's gonna be figuring out how to get them to understand the phases, and that eventually it would be teeing them up to opt into something like contracted hauling and understand what an equal space ordinance would look like if we went that route, but then also notifying them about like the business license and that, those changes too. So that's something that we've already talked about with Sheridan, Englewood, and Centennial, and we're thinking if we could do some type of shared communications, it would be helpful of figuring out what it looks like in each city or how that changes. And then the regional drop off, that I have that listed as 2027. I think it'll probably depend a bit on how each city wants to end up funding that, because they're not gonna make any money off of it. And then the organics, like doing organics infrastructure is sort of pushed out here because it's gonna be a really, really large cost. I think we're gonna need a lot more time to work on that as a group. And I wonder how much we could do with A1 Organics, but they just expanded, so I'm not sure if they're gonna be ready to expand again in terms of doing food waste. I know right now they expanded their yard waste, but they only do yard. And some of the other companies are starting to think about how they're doing that. So maybe it's like a transfer station. So like maybe like getting them to get their ducks in a row a little bit more and then figuring out how we can add on to that space, because creating a regional large scale organics processing infrastructure will be quite the undertaking. Oh, and Douglas County is doing a biochar facility. I can send that article to y'all. They sort of have it under the wildfire angle, but it also sequesters a fair amount of carbon, so it's pretty cool.
Part of the forest management.
I think it's technically under their like wastewater, like diversion.
Fire mitigation.
It's fire mitigation, but it's, they're kind of structured in a way that I don't fully understand, but the people that I know are engineers that work on it, so I'm not really sure what department they fall under, but I'm happy to send y'all the article. And can share that around, cause it's a pretty big win for them, but the way that they're not really using any of the words that I would use when talking about it. It's very specific, so that's all I'll say about that, but, yeah, it's really cool though. They're kind of going at it from the wildfire approach.
Yeah, on the Douglas County website, it's all about like wildfire mitigations.
Yes, we're protecting people.
Yeah.
And as a side benefit, it does other things. Yeah, well,
Spring 2026.
yeah,
Sedalia.
so,
Pete's talk is wood, it's lumber that they're cutting down, is that right?
think so?
That's diseased wood, understory material, and other non-sellable wood from forest thinning and cleanup can now be processed locally.
So they're going to thin out the forest and make biochar out of that.
Yeah, it's really cool.
It'll pay for itself in 9 years.
Mhm. Yeah, so also wanted to bring that to the attention and then.
So item 3 on that was, can that be ordinance, local ordinance, or does it have to be, so say, well, you're a multifamily within the jurisdiction of city of Littleton, you have to.
I think that'll just fall under the business licensing and everything we do with that. I don't think it would have to be separate. I think it could be part of outreach and education as it relates to that. I don't think we would do anything separate under it. I never do this one. Oh, it does work. Great. Well, the next thing I had was, I had these little like worksheets for y'all to, I was thinking maybe like take 5 minutes and try to fill it out yourself. It's about like creating a community event around waste. And then I was gonna have you get into groups of like 2 or 3 and pick your favorite of the 2 and then like pitch them to each other so that we could start thinking about if we wanna do an event, no matter what that looks like. So I wanted to like give y'all some ownership over it. And I don't know, I had some fun in Canva, so I made some worksheets. Oh, but you can do it during class, so it's much better.
Or you're looking for thoughts on waste related event, correct?
Ideally, but if you wanna think out of the box for something different that you would be excited about, it's like adjacent, I'm like not against any type of creativity. But hopefully around like waste, outreach and education, whatever you wanna do with that. That could mean a zero waste potluck, right? Like it could look a lot, like a lot of different things.
Might throw the agenda back up.
Yeah.
What's HHW and HPI is a part of recycle and.
And household hazardous waste. Sorry, there is simply not enough room to spell out the words.
Am I allowed to jump in? I'll wait till the end.
Take applications in January. I think they come out in December.
Been through that once.
Yeah. Totally for y'all.
Thought I heard something. Bag. Okay.
A long homework.
It is kind of long. I was hoping it would kind of get juices flowing and then at this point, maybe you'd get into groups of 2 to 3 and pitch to each other and then you'd pick your favorite and then pitch that to one another and then we sort of narrow something down to get, you know, something planning for an event. But you don't have to do all the logistics now, just if something really sparked your interest. Unless you're like me and haven't done a worksheet in years and you're like, this is great.
You're recording during this.
That's actually good. The public record.
Alright, I wanna get into groups of 2 to 3 and pitch what you got and decide which one you're gonna pitch to the other group.
I didn't.
About
That's okay, we can talk.
about 10 minutes to pitch your ideas, pick one and.
You want first, you want me to go first?
You should go first.
I went pretty small scale, so my neighborhood does like a annual block party at the end of the summer. Where it's just like a potluck, like we literally, I think we do get a city permit to like block off the single street kind of, and it's the surrounding neighborhood of like, 2 to 3 streets or whatever. Block off the street, potluck, everyone signs up for a dish.
Yeah.
But I figured we could tack on to that, and do like an e-waste collection with an education table for like the rest of the different waste things that are happening and, educational piece of like how to
They like that.
recycle certain things, but e-waste was the only thing that I felt was small enough out of what was listed to like not make it like a huge, like Dragon yard waste or other things down the
Yeah,
street, but like
right.
e-waste is like, okay, I have some, batteries or old cell phones or things that, I mean, sure, someone could bring like a big screen TV or something, but like theoretically, people could probably bring most of the e-waste. So I thought that was like a tangible yet realistic thing for neighbors to bring. And you could partner with an e-waste vendor that would actually accept it. And, as far as funding goes, it's like, either it could be partially city funded or just maybe you negotiate a rate where, with the vendor to say, okay, it's $5 per, or $1 per thing. I don't know what it is, but some kind of like easy.
It's expensive.
I know, so that's where I'm almost,
Piece.
yeah, so I wonder if it could be like partially funded by the city, not sure, but so not totally sure on that, but then I like the idea of having a table, with whether it's city staff or, someone from a group like ours that actually says, great, thanks for recycling your e-waste, or even if you didn't bring it, here's all the other things that might be hard to recycle sometimes, and here's how you could do it. But I just find that in my neighborhood, like potluck block party tends to be the time when the most people come out all at once in like a centralized area. And so you might actually have somewhat of an audience.
Yeah.
But again, I went small because I feel like I got overwhelmed thinking big and trying to like, wondering if this could just be something that's like replicated in other neighborhoods as well. And maybe it's more like ends up being a block party at a park nearby or something like that, but, then it starts getting into the resources. We usually do it on a weekend, late afternoon, again, dinner time-ish. Our neighborhood has like a pretty decent distribution list for email, so really, and they also leave flyers on everyone's door, like if you beforehand. So nothing crazy, but
Seems
Should.
different than what we were just talking about. I mean, to me, I consider like waste and tires and bulk trash to be like, it's its own thing. What we were just talking about is waste, recycling and compost, period. You know,
Yeah.
and then this program and, you know, I saw this done so well, so amazingly well. I forget the name of the organization, but they're the guys who go around and clean people's yard in the spring and stuff like that. This was in Douglas County and the event took place.
was it like landscaping companies or?
No, it was like, I keep wanting to say Colorado municipally, but that's not it. It's, these organizations really do a lot in communities specifically, and they help people, like help them clean up the yard, but in this case, they ran this massive electronic and paint recycling event in Douglas County. Massive. And somehow, you know, they got the word out and so forth, and I went, oh, I have stuff,
Yeah.
you know? And I took all my stuff and I took it over there, and they didn't have a price, they wanted a donation. So you don't have $30, you have whatever you wanna pay.
Right.
You're like, oh yeah, I've got, here, have some money, this is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
And you can take your paint, but I mean, they were all set up like, this part over here is all for the paint and stuff like, and I mean, it was taking up a whole parking lot. They were
Yeah.
so organized with the bins and stuff. They knew what they were gonna do, but somehow, I guess they would accumulate all this money they collected and use that to go, you know, process this waste. Somehow they knew what to do with the downstream end of this thing.
Yeah.
But it was so big and so well organized and so well
How
advertised.
did you find out about it?
Through, I'm thinking it was either some newsletter I'm on, or it was through the church because of the parking lot it's in, I know that church.
Yeah.
But I feel like that might not have been it.
Yeah.
Either way, I think there's plenty of, it's how do you communicate it so that everybody knows about it?
Yeah.
You just have to make it such a big deal.
Yeah.
That everybody knows about it.
And I think
But it was
that's-
on that massive, large scale so that, and if you did it every year, people know about
Plan
it. So
for-
after the first year, you go, oh yeah, you've got to attend this, you know, like that banner they have on Main Street, put that up.
Yeah.
Massive recycling event, you
Yeah.
know? So I think you could really scale it up is kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Just do it community wide.
Yeah.
And once you've done it, just make sure you repeat it.
Yeah.
And, you know, this organization was so well organized, I think that if you could get these nonprofits to run it for you,
Right.
you know, I think it's taken care of. Cause I mean, I saw a success down there. They're very well organized, so,
Yeah.
I mean, talk to them.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
how did you, you know, what steps did you go through and so forth?
And I think in my mind, the one that I set up almost like feeds into something like that. Because I think what I was thinking about in my event was also like, how do we get in front of people who aren't gonna read those newsletters and aren't, you know, you're someone who I'm guessing,
Yeah.
you're on the environmental stewardship report, so I'm guessing that's something that you value and you pay attention to. So how do you get in front of the people that don't, that's not their top priority or value, it's not something they're looking out for.
Yeah.
And so for me, this is like people,
You collect their stuff and take it over.
well, that and just the education piece, like even if they don't bring any e-waste and they're just showing up for a free dinner or whatever, then you still have a platform at that point to say, hey, if you have any e-waste, we're gonna have this massive recycling event in a month.
Oh, yeah,
So,
definitely.
You know, they may not be reading the Littleton newspaper or the,
Every board
Yeah.
would be, you know, asked to really communicate with their groups, constituents,
Yeah.
whatever.
yeah. Cause that's the biggest issue I always see is like, how do you get in front of people who
Every
don't?
single organization, like, you know, this woman in Littleton, I don't know if you've heard of her, Betty Harris, she runs the Littleton garden gang. She's got a massive email list. And then there's the zero waste gang in Littleton. You know, another really big, these, when you can find these groups that have these big email lists,
Yeah,
you start to use those, you
Yeah.
know?
and I think those are important, but I still worry about the people that aren't on those lists.
Yes, exactly.
You know, like,
But, you know, like this nonprofit, and I know Littleton has it. Anyway, yeah.
yeah,
It'll
yeah,
come back to me later, but yeah, you know, use their lists, use
Yeah.
other nonprofits.
Yeah.
lists to get out,
yeah.
you know. Lots of ways to communicate, but I really think post it once and it'll become a big.
I like the idea of making it an annual thing where it's like people can start to realize
Well,
like,
it's always like the leaf recycling, the drug recycling, the electronics recycling. I mean, everything is annual at around the same time, so you know, I'm saving my medicine.
well, I also love your idea, or like, I guess the event you went to that was multiple. And so it wasn't like, oh, it's just a leaf recycling event. It's like,
Yeah,
no,
it's
this is the
paint,
massive, like hard to
electronic.
recycle, you name it. Cause I know I did a drop off, it was somewhere near downtown Littleton. I wanna say it might have been the Elks, and it was donation based, or it's like, okay, donation is $20 and you can bring all your paints or whatever.
Yeah.
But it was just for paints, which is great, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I love the idea of the other one having like, okay, here's 10 different really hard to recycle
Yeah,
materials.
right.
So, you know, it's all on the same date, same time, like, you know, figure out what you can get over there.
Yeah, make the drug recycling and the
So is there a way? we can-
electronic recycling, paint recycling.
And then just consistency.
Yeah, do it every year. But you need a nonprofit who has their act together really well, you know.
Yeah.
Just gotta put the temperature.
And some organizations really love, I mean, you know, maybe there's a church who wants to make it a project, maybe there's a Boy Scout group who wants to make it their Eagle Scout
Yeah.
project. You could really tap into.
So with something like that, I do worry about like, if we do really wanna make it an annual
Yeah.
consistent thing,
Right.
then you have to.
Somebody's got to head it
Gotta
up.
be around.
Uh-huh.
Like, I love the idea of like an Eagle Scout or a Girl Scout project, but then it's like, how do you make sure it happens again the next year?
Yeah.
And maybe you're just looping a troop in or whatever for like each year.
Yeah, every year you get a troop involved or something, just to kind of,
City
that's
council.
part of the education, get them going, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
There. So if I remember right.
Bing.
There we go, boom. We've solved all the problems.
I'll have all the problems, yeah.
I'll go Google that, nonprofits.
Yeah.
As always.
Let's see.
And then, on the work structure.
What did you scare of?
We've gone down this path already. I did to tell him his water. Every other.
I wanna present like whatever the one you decided on.
I feel like ours is kind of a combo.
Well, I love that. Did y'all decide on one that you liked the best?
You know me.
You abstained?
I gotta do a thing always.
Alright, who wants to go first?
Sure. So kind of, I feel like the events that we came up with were kind of, I came up with kind of a smaller event that almost feeds into what LaDonna was talking about. So I'll talk about mine first, then I'll let LaDonna talk about hers. But mine's almost more of a tapping into events that already exist type of situation. So my neighborhood throws an annual block party where, you know, you sign up, we have a distribution list that everyone's, you know, somehow on, and you sign up for whatever dish you're gonna bring, and we get permits to block off like one of the city streets for 3-4 hours, whatever it is. And so tapping into that to say, okay, something like e-recycling, which tends to be a little smaller versus some of the other waste that were listed, like yard waste that takes a bit more. But e-waste, again, yes, you could bring a big flat screen TV, but there's a lot of cell phones and keyboards and mice and things that do tend to be smaller. So something that's realistic that someone could bring, and then coupling that with an education piece of like, thanks for bringing your e-waste, or thanks for showing up in general. Here's the different, waste yeah, opportunities that are available to you. Here's what's happening in the city or in the community. Like hope you tap into it. And so my goal there is to get in front of people who aren't necessarily reading looking for environmental related things in newsletters or already part of groups, but you're just tapping into a general neighborhood event. So one of the events that we would talk about and say is coming up is the one LaDonna came up with.
Yeah, so mine kind of scales that at the opposite end on the citywide level. And I had a specific example I had attended and I thought it was just absolutely perfect, given what we're talking about here. And, this was, it was the Rotary Club of Douglas County, and they had this massive recycling event. It was held at St. Andrew United Methodist Church back in May of this year. And they took paint and they took e-waste, all kinds of electronics. No, it was a free event, but as they had a well-marked parking lot and a well-routed thing to get cars through there very, very efficiently. People all along the way, a lot of volunteer crew to get to do it. But when, it was free, but they did ask you for a donation on the spot. And you got there and like all over here was all the paint, recycling that they had sorted. And then there was, another side of the parking lot with, massive amounts of bins and stuff that they sorted through, monitors, cords, computers, phones, whatever. So I was thinking if we could partner with a nonprofit, and get the word out, someone who does it efficiently, because they'd obviously thought about the in-stream part of that, like what to do with it after the event, how to get rid of it and so forth. And if there was someone like, the Rotary Club here locally who could run that for us and really, look into the in-stream part of that and take care of it. We were talking about, well, if this became like an annual event in Littleton, maybe we scale it up, like you've got your e-waste and paint perhaps, but we used to have a drug recycling day. Maybe that's part of this, you don't want.
I think it's this weekend.
Okay, all right. It's this
The
weekend.
idea of like taking all those kind of like piecemealed and being like, here's our one really hard to
like the
recycle day every year.
tires Maybe or something. I mean, if you really try to consolidate these recycling days into some big massive parking lot, that you can have people route through and you have the bins sorted out and so forth. I think if you held it one time, it would be, oh, that's coming up in the fall. I need to, save my stuff up for it and make sure and donate it.
Stuff.
We got into talking about, all the different groups that we could talk to try to help get the word out. There's the grassroots level, but then there's a lot of organizations locally that all of us know, like the Littleton Garden Gang, the Littleton Zero Waste Gang, there's a lot of nonprofits in town. If you start to use people's email lists, then you're getting the word out on this event and, put the banner on Main Street, recycling event this weekend. So I think that, it's just a matter of having that one key nonprofit lead, where there's also a lot of supporting volunteers around it and a lot of good communication around it. That was kind of our. And then the grassroots part of that feeds in because, you've collected some things that maybe wouldn't have been collected otherwise ahead of time in order to get it over there for people who may not be as cognizant about the events like that. So.
Kind of fun on Hannah's idea. You could, like you said, people could apply for a permit to block the street off. And so like a lot of events have permits, and so the city could be like, hey, as you're applying for a permit, you want this little support in doing something extra with your event.
Yeah.
It won't cost the city anything. And you'd be like,
And like, here's a list of vendors that might be willing to like help you with it, yeah.
if you want to add some value to your event.
Love that.
Yeah, that'd be cool. maybe Costco's closed on Sundays. I think, so.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, there's gotta be a big parking lot. There's so many parking lots.
Community college maybe?
Even churches.
Development.
Churches on Saturday, they have big
I
parking.
know when I did like garden in a box pickup, they were super efficient and it was down at a church in like Highlands Ranch area, but it was just like so efficient. But like, here's the flow of traffic, here's where you pick up your box and like, okay, bye.
Yeah.
I didn't even get in my car. They're like, stay in your car.
Yeah, no,
Open up
you
the
don't.
back. I was like, okay.
don't-
Like, I felt like almost like,
No
I like
idling.
check what's happening. They're like, nope, stay in your car. I was like, okay. Hope you put everything
You
back.
actually might wanna think about time of year with idling, like not dead of winter or heat of summer, so that we can
Yeah.
actually tell people in good faith to be like, it's a nice day.
Yeah.
Don't keep your car running during this event.
Yeah. Well, and like ours, the neighborhood event I'm thinking of also is like, no one drives there because we're all within like a 2 or 3 block radius, so everyone's walking there, so you don't really have to worry about flow of traffic except for whatever vendors like picking up the stuff when it's done, but.
But small like e-waste, hopefully you don't have to drive it. That makes sense. Cool. Nice job. What do y'all have over here?
So, yeah, here are my thoughts, because I'm designated spokesperson. So we're an advisory board to city council. We don't do anything without the council's blessing. And we're talking about waste diversion. And we're talking about things like limiting the number of haulers in the city, right, which is politically fraught. And when I say politically fraught, I mean, I think we've been seeing some of what that can mean in our community with regard to the 3A conversation. Tensions get high, it gets real, political council can swing. I mean, it's like, you have to appreciate, right, what we're trying to do. And we're really trying to do it. So I appreciate sincerely you getting us out of our routine, asking us to do something different. It's a little bit hard for me to get into the spirit of this, just because it feels like putting the cart before the horse. To me, the only community event that matters is circling up with the new council in January and asking them what their appetite is for some of our goals related to waste diversion. I think we need to work openly, closely with the new council and kind of work within their parameters, work within their appetite to do some of this stuff. If they say, yeah, run with it, okay, great, we can run with it. They say, yeah, we have some appetite for this, but it's limited to this, that, and the other thing, and we want to exclude A, B, and C, okay, then that's what we have to do, or potentially they just shut it down entirely. And say, I don't want to hear a conversation from the environmental stewardship board about limiting haulers, right? I don't mean to be catastrophizing. I've just sort of experienced some of these tense moments in the city, and it's not impossible, right? If we roll up to a new council that has politics different than ours, and we say, hey, look, we're here advocating for limiting hauler, say, oh, we don't think we need to have this report after all, thanks for this disadvantage. So, you know, these community events that really thought council about what they're up for and not
Yeah. That was our collective one, we tabled our other ideas, yeah.
Totally hear you. However, we currently have collection events and other things, and I don't think that it's super controversial to help people get the junk out of their house. So like, it could be yes and, right? Why not both, right?
Yeah.
Because if we are also pushing that educational component, that could be what we run by council before an event. But we could still plan for this type of event, and if they're like, no, I'm sure there will be people regardless that would like the opportunity to have something like this. And maybe it's, if you do care about this, speak to council. You should go talk to your elected official, because this is what the plan was and what we are recommending. They might not agree with us right now. So, you know, be empowered to go do that. And so maybe it's like the conversation might shift at the event based on that conversation. But I don't think the event would have to go away completely. I also don't think they're gonna disband y'all. I mean, I don't know anything, but I don't know anything. That'd be kind of crazy though. Maybe not. You've seen it all, so.
the cops got called Tuesday's council. She's over, an anti-3A.
I mean, yeah, like the EPA doesn't exist anymore. I don't know what the world is. Like,
I'm
it's
not thinking-
fine.
I'm not thinking anything.
That meeting there.
Right. And I think the other side of it is like looking at what they did and if that were to happen, like basically like how are we gonna rebrand and keep going? Like how are we gonna call ourselves the resilience board, right? How are we gonna figure out how to keep going in the face of something like that?
Like events like this,
So important.
like what Ladonna suggested, it's a service to the community. It's not so
Right.
much
Yeah.
pushing an ideology or
Right.
talking about single heart or.
It doesn't have to be, yeah.
It's not even about that, it's just a service, right? So I think events like that aren't apolitical would be good.
Yeah. And I mean, you can also look at what happened in Douglas County. They're saying that this is for wildfire. You can go at all these different angles and there's a lot of people doing that right now. So I'd probably like hope, okay, well, if you don't want an environmental stewardship board, do you want a resiliency board for hazard mitigation planning, right? Like, how are we gonna still come together and do the important work in real creative, fun ways? I hope it doesn't come to that at the local level. My fingers and toes and everything's crossed, it does not, but I really hope I have some people in my corner that wanna be part of the spin committee. But I do think that we should go to council, we could do that, and we could also plan for something like this. And maybe we figure out, in terms of the pulse of a new council, what the temperature would be on an educational component, and if it's more just apolitical then. Is it more just about education and getting people to engage that way by saving up all your stuff, we have an event coming up? I don't know what y'all think about that, if that's, in some ways, we could do both of your things, cause they're very different.
Well, and my mind also just keeps going back to like, just talk about the economics of it, right? If it's a collection event, then for the residents, it's a free donation based like event that's saving you money from having to, figure out and pay for whatever it is you're trying to recycle.
Clean toxic things
Yeah.
out of our water from
Yeah.
meat and stuff.
But you just don't, you don't
It'll
even,
be cheaper.
it's free. That's what you
Right.
start with.
Right. It's free.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
My expression is, if it's free, it's for me.
Yeah.
I'm in.
So I don't know if y'all wanna like think about, what it would look like if you were to go before a new council and get that direction, but also potentially still wanna do some of this outreach and education, because maybe it's teaching people that recycling is happening and having a table at this event and being like, all right, there's just a trash bin. So say that Waste Management is your company, for example, like, can you guess which item of these can actually be recycled? Right? Like that could be something that's at said event. It doesn't have to be this one or bust, but we could take one of their guidelines as an example and like show people that wanna know, because there are a lot of people that ask me that all the time, can I recycle this? Sure, that's something everyone thinks about. So I also wanna set up a recycling tour, and I'm hoping to do that with the new council and ESB. And so maybe that's something, if they seem more excited about waste diversion after that conversation, maybe we could also set up a tour where y'all and the new council can go tour an actual recycling facility and like see how the sausage doesn't get made or whatever you wanna call it. Yeah. But I agree, we should figure out what they prioritize, but I think no matter who the council is at any point, outreach and education hopefully is not super controversial if we're providing apolitical services. I think. I don't know what the world is anymore, but I think.
And then the resources for outreach and education are just volunteer time. Is there any fun?
So I could apply for the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment's like mini grants. So we could say if we came up with some event, I could apply, like I'd need to know kind of in advance, but I could apply for a mini grant. We could put funds towards doing an event. I think it's up to $50,000. They are not stopping in the face of anything because it's an enterprise fund through the state, so that's the landfill tipping fees. They've paused all of their other grants besides mini grants, but I think mini grants would make the most sense for this. And we could hire a consultant to make all of the social media, to literally help us organize an event that works with y'all, that, like, there are things that we could decide to do.
The mail lists together and so forth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As long as we can recycle them, yeah. Cause otherwise it'd feel really weird, but yeah.
Email list.
Well, it feels like we should also meet people where they're at. Some people really do prefer mail, but as long as we have an avenue for them to recycle the paper, maybe it's okay. But yeah, figuring that out. So if that's something that we're seriously interested in, I can look into. I have an application I'm submitting
Well,
soon.
I mean,
Look into that too.
I feel like we're talking a couple of different things here. This,
We are.
you know, one day big mega recycling event. I totally think we should have that. I think it's part of what we do already, but we should scale it up and, make it so well known that everybody knows when it is, where it is, and let's just do this.
Like spring
But
cleaning.
then-
I don't know.
Yeah, something, spring or fall, basically. But I think we also have this other, I'm assuming that's all systems are gonna go. I mean, I kind of operate that way until told otherwise, we're gonna move forward. So continue to move forward and plan for this calendar you showed us earlier. There's a lead up to this, business licensing thing and, bringing the community on board. I mean, the biggest thing that we have to do is avoid catching the community unaware that, this is coming. So that's gonna take a long time and a lot of events and so forth. That's where I think the money should go, because, it's a sustained effort versus a one-time thing. It's something that needs to be consistent. It's regional, so these other cities should kick in money too, to get the consistent messaging out there. And we gotta regionally hold events that look alike and sound alike and,
I really don't wanna just be the, buzzkill over and over again. I mean, our mandate is to be an advisory committee, policy questions to city council. For us to be sort of in that, especially before we've sort of received clear direction from council on what policy they want us working on, would be unusual. I mean, generally, it would go, hey, council, our recommendation to you is we do X type of event. Council, works up its agenda, has deliberation from the dais and says, hey, yeah, and we're directing staff to then go and do event planning.
I mean, I totally see where you're coming from, but in terms of y'all doing, like, other boards do other types of like events and show up at different community tabling things, and y'all have the opportunity to always do that if you want. Education and outreach to me would be, I think the board would, or the council would want, like, be very annoyed with me if everything I brought was back to them unless it was definitely something they need direction on. But this plan's going for adoption in 2 weeks. So I got the green light from city manager's office. The presentation I showed y'all is the presentation I'm presenting to council. And if they adopt the plan, they're not broadly saying, yes, we're definitely gonna do hauler licensing, but if we're considering it, it kind of makes sense to start the conversation now. Because then we are gonna catch people off guard. If they feel like they're not understanding what it is that we're trying to do, is my fear, at least, of like, if we don't start talking about it and making it a part of the conversation, then it's fear of the unknown, because it's been in hushed tones the whole time. I feel like that's kind of what this community is craving, is they're craving for more information, for learning more. At least that's what my pulse is, but maybe I'm wrong. You were on council. I know it's totally different than the position that I'm in, but my read is like half the time I can't even get on the council agenda because they're so busy. They hear everything. And so if I were to bring us doing an event to them, it could be like a year before we can even start. I don't mean to be pessimist about that part, but it takes me a while to get on agenda.
I guess my question to you, Scott, is if like, let's say we do get on their agenda in Q1 with the new council, we'll call it February. What are you thinking we should be doing between now and then?
I think we need to revisit our conversation about priorities as a board. We need to head straight for whatever our top priorities are.
I think we did revisit that conversation.
I was gonna say, like, what, it was last month or the
I
month
think it was
before.
last meeting, or the month before, and I put sort of that email.
September.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, the question is, did we identify doing an event as a group, as a?
No, but waste was identified as, yeah.
So, I mean, within that, is hosting an event a priority? Or is it some other thing, like getting to limited haulers in the city?
I mean, if we're being honest, like I keep being asked by different board members, what's the best way that we can be involved? And like the best way that I see for y'all is like, this is your community. Like, these are your people. Like, how do I reach them and have them like promote this bridge to understanding is actually in some ways even more, like, I also need help with the policy side, and sort of that's true of like a letter of support for this plan and going and understanding it, but I think I hope there's a mix of the things that we can work on, because I really do need help tapping into the community, because yeah, at the end of the day, sure, council makes a decision, but who votes on council? It's the people. And it's everyone's trash. And so I keep going back to that, like I really feel like this education outreach is super important. And I need help not only with these ideas, but like how am I gonna go to all these different neighborhoods? How am I gonna reach people that don't speak English if I don't, figure out these pieces. I think that's sort of where I see the gap being. I mean, I'll probably do the majority of lifting anyhow, but I think I would hope like maybe if you have the contacts at nonprofits that we could like get that, or like, for sure the neighborhood would be excited or not excited, or an HOA that you're a part of, like all of that would be really helpful in getting to these policy goals and getting more people to care. And then maybe tell their council member, we care about this, and maybe that would also help too. So I'm kind of trying to think about this a little bit more from the ground up rather than the top down. But I totally get your approach. That's just.
Well, I think where I do agree with Scott is like, I don't really wanna plan an event. That being said, if there is an opportunity for us to table an event, I think that's different, but I don't think that this
I would
board
plan
is
the
equipped
event.
to like,
Yeah.
but I don't know if that should be the sole. Like, I don't know if you or us have the capacity to plan like a full-blown event versus tapping into events that already exist.
She said if we got a grant, she could hire someone, and I guess.
I can, yeah. I can get a grant.
Going there is a kind of a volunteer
Or tacking to
communication.
another event, or I could like co-plan it with the cities that are in this plan. Like, so Englewood does like a fix-it clinic where they have all these different vendors that get together that teach people how to like fix their appliances or like fix electronics. And they come in and instead of like throwing something out or buying something new, they're like, how do I fix this thing? Is it fixable, or is this how I'm gonna get electrocuted, right? And so like working with those different people, they put it on, I think, with the library. So like that's kind of an event that their sustainability coordinator helps with, but doesn't do all of it. So it's like over multiple staff at Englewood. So I'd hope that I could get other people on board and excited that if we did tap into something and we're like, we want this event to be zero waste. So say it's your board appreciation dinner and I want it to be zero waste. Like, can I get the events people at the city excited about that, and then connect them with like someone else at a different city, like sort of figuring out how to make the pieces come together. But I don't think I would start from scratch for anything or make y'all do that. It's more like, how do I tap into the community and figuring out what would resonate with people? That's what I'm hoping. I don't want y'all to be event planners. I don't want to be in it.
I think I would need some real assurance that any, time we spend, sort of giving the thumbs up to an event would be worth our time. So I've sat on a lot of boards, covering a lot of different topics over the years. There's always a lot of enthusiasm for events, and almost inevitably, they turn out to be underwhelming and a lot of times a real misuse of organizational time, particularly board time. And
How do you think that we reach people?
uh,
That's like kind of what I was trying to get at, the activity. How do we reach people that are not currently engaged and that probably don't care, but they do have trash?
Yeah.
That's the question. And if like there's a different way to get about it, like trust me, I used to be in the nonprofit space. I'm not like, yes, events, or else I probably would have stayed in that space. But
I mean, the city has, a good game plan all times for doing community outreach around identified policy goals. I think that's the way we approach it. We kind of go, our board, council, staff, and staff goes and.
I think we're seeing that that's not working. I think that's kind of what I don't think it's working. You think it's working? I saw the housing thing. I mean, not to like argue with you, but I just feel like there's gotta be a better way. I don't know what it is, which is why I need help, but I just feel like we're missing. There's some part of the population that feels thrown off when we come up with decisions or come up with plans, no matter how many times we talk about them. So like, who is not in the room? How do we get them in the room, or how do we meet them where they're at? And that's where an event where there's some type of service is attractive, because then you could be like, hey, also this thing, right? But, or tacking onto an existing event, right? If that works too, or seeing what else someone else is doing in the space, not reinventing the wheel. But like, I think that's the big question I'm trying to ask, is like, how do I get to this part of the community that seems so upset by anything that we do, really understand and have buy-in?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, I guess I don't know what you mean when you say it's not working. I mean, my experience was it worked pretty well. My experience with this kind of a thing, you know, getting community buy-in through a series of community events was super effective. We were, as a council, moving toward adopting a series of community events. They were super effective. And the way we went about it was, the council directed staff to, let's do community outreach, let's develop consultants needs, and we did a bunch of events, it's super successful. Yeah, I think there's a kind of way that we can professionalize our efforts to community buy-in and new community education, if that's what we decide to do. I think we have a lot of expertise on staff for doing exactly that. I think that, you know, for us to take too much ownership of that as a board would be kind of a little bit off. Just my thoughts though.
Okay, well, I don't really know. I think that's like the big thing that I'm really looking at for the first half of next year with waste. So if like y'all aren't interested in it, I guess I'll see if I can talk to some of the nonprofits, maybe the Zero Waste Gang, and like tap in that way. I just like, I mean, I definitely would love to figure out what this messaging is, and figuring out like, you know, what people need to hear to like understand this like super nuanced issue. And so like, sometimes I use all of these big words, and so is there a way to break it down that makes sense in bite-sized pieces? Do you feel like people that are under 30 are understanding any of this and would talk to their large building developer care, right? Like, just like figuring out how to bridge that gap. I personally think that that should be the role of a board, just like y'all's, because you're all this is your community, but I don't know.
When do EPR funds become available?
January 1st.
So I think, very important for us to have it in each, so we utilize that money, find a way to utilize that money. So, and outreach is part of that, so. It's just a little difficult for us right now to find out what that outreach is. But we've only had one meeting. I think we'll come around what kind of outreach we need to discuss.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I wish there was people that were really doing this in a coordinated effort, but like, if anything is related to sustainability, it's just me. So
Yeah.
it's just my brain. So it's always good to like bounce more ideas, or like, yeah, just hear more of the groups that could be like good outreach. Is it like, should I be like looking at the farmer's market next year, right? Like, would that be a cool place to see if like A1 Organics wants to work with us, or sort of what that looks like? I do think that the hauler licensing is something. So no matter if there's a new council, if this council adopts it, it's still a plan that is adopted unless a new council overturns it. So if we're saying consider any of these things and this council adopts it, I think that carries on. I don't think that is totally erased. Like, I don't think we have to go back to square one with a new council. We definitely can get their buy-in for all of it, for sure, but I think that if this current council adopts it, then it's adopted.
Adopt, what do you mean it? Sorry.
The South Metro Waste Diversion Plan is going for adoption in 2 weeks. And so that includes all of those components that I showed you all on that timeline list. And it doesn't commit them to action. Like, as I said, I'm gonna have to go back for all of these individual ones, and any council could shoot down the first reading to do hauler licensing, right? They could say, never mind, that's a terrible idea. And it would probably be worth our while to go meet with them and make sure that that's not a terrible idea, so we don't waste our time. But as I see it, if they have done this first part, the biggest part of it is education and outreach.
For licensing, are we talking about?
And I know all of the 9 different like goals for the city of Littleton, so like ongoing education outreach, like equal space ordinance, the contracted hauling, the hauler licensing, destruction demolition ordinance, like it's all on there. And so technically they will, just like your environmental stewardship action plan, which is baked into Horizon 2027, this is all tied back to their action. I don't know if that necessarily really changes with a new council. They still adopted it unless it restarts, and I'm misunderstanding. I think we'd still have the green light to do almost all of this. Until they tell me otherwise. But I could be wrong. You were on council, I was.
Liz, why don't you and I just talk offline a bit? I think maybe be more useful for me, but.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
I just said Laura and I can just touch base. Offline.
I also think there's service associations that you can, service groups you can talk to without doing gathering for e-waste or whatever. You just talk to different service organizations and hope you can find a service organization that matches the group you want to speak to.
Yeah. That's a good idea. Like if there's some type of nonprofit like already doing it, if they would want like to partner or something.
Or just someone, they're always looking for filling agendas. Right? So you could come in and talk about it for 20 minutes and
Oh, I see.
describe what's going on.
Yeah.
Say this EPR is coming along and describe the problem with recycling. Some people don't know.
Right.
And then to say, well, this is actually a great opportunity because we're getting one that's going to be free for you. Instead of just hit different service organizations along the way. Or out another way.
It's a good idea.
Question, I'm just on the city's website and there's like, the fall leaf and pumpkin collection event. And then it also talks about the, like waste management, curbside service, kind of $20 co-payment fee for hard to recycle materials. Is that partially funded through the city at all? Or is that, cause it has like the fall leaf and pumpkin collection is like $5 per vehicle, right?
It's partially subsidized by the city, so it's actually specifically for the hard to recycle through the storm water fund, because it gets like very, very toxic waste out of our waste stream. Is the point of like the hard to recycle. I actually think we completely sold out of like the, whatever the vouchers were for it, potentially,
For the pumpkin one?
no, or household hazardous waste.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, this just
Yeah,
doesn't
I think it
show
was
up from 8 AM to.
Popular, no, for the pumpkin and the leaf one, I think those are partially subsidized by the city as well, and I'm not exactly sure how, because Browns usually runs those.
For our community, the leaves are a big problem. To get rid of leaves, so if you could advertise that, how to get rid of leaves this time of year,
Yeah.
that'd be a big help. We have to play all sorts of games to get our leaves into our trash cans, which isn't even good because it's going to landfill. But vaguely know there's a place to bring leaves with, sure. So that was my idea, is to use those sort of.
Like pushing the events we already have.
Yeah, that because
Yeah.
you have to do it frequently because people.
Do you think those flyers work on Main Street? Like, you know, there's those giant banners. Does that work?
He's on trail mark though.
Oh.
Yeah, but I think it does work for everyone.
It works for everyone else. Okay.
If you, even if you send it to the
Yeah.
HOA, their newsletter, people see it.
Right.
And so maybe there are a lot of these HOAs that need sort of a constant reminder. So,
Laura, I wanna ask, I don't know if there's an incongruence here in understanding what an event, what the purpose is, and wanna just ask this to you to understand if this is what you're thinking. So when I hear Scott talk, it makes me think, when we go to an event or when there's an event, the point is to advocate for some of these goals, like a single hauler system or reducing the number of haulers. And I hear Scott say, well, maybe there's a board member who's like, oh, that's like a third rail. I don't want to touch that. That's not something I want to lose my position over. So I think, you, Scott, I'm hearing like, we might not be allowed to advocate on behalf of Littleton City Council for something that not all the city council members are aligned on. Is that fair?
So.
Or that would be out of the role?
You're advisory, you're just a person, right?
I know. Is that, are you in alignment with what I just said?
Yeah, I mean, the normal course of things is for us to provide policy direction to the council that choose to adopt it or not. Once it's adopted, to the extent it needs to be operationalized, for example, through community outreach or event planning, then they direct staff to do that. Staff's expertise is what actually operationalizes the policy, right? For a board to go and spend its very finite time, which needs to be devoted to crafting good policy recommendations, to be doing, to take any kind of very proactive, very involved role in event planning.
So that's one
Yeah.
side. I think that then there's another side of events that's like, let's just do something that's good for the community that in this case has to do with waste or serving the needs around waste. Maybe not necessarily advocating for any sort of position, just providing a service. Is that fair also, that this is also what we're talking about at the same time?
I think it could be either or, it could be both. If this is like completely uncomfortable, it could be neither. If y'all have no interest in coming to said event, we can stop. I think the big point of it is that it's this outreach and education piece. So I'm trying to I was trying to just make it a little bit more tangible with the
Sure.
event of like talking about how we actually. Because I mean, we've had these conversations and like y'all are asking questions, I'm like, I'm 90% sure on that, I'm gonna double check, but that's me knowing exactly where to check and what it is, like this isn't something a general person would know, so it's like, how are we gonna break this down for people? So say we go to council in February and they're like, yeah, full steam ahead. All of a sudden you get a flyer in your mailbox, you haven't heard a thing, and it says your waste hauler is no longer able to operate, you must choose from this, like, you'd be very confused. So I'm just like, how do we get ahead of that confusion?
Yeah, we do not. As an advisory board to council, we do not, right? It really needs to be up to the expertise of staff in close communication with council about how that community outreach is crafted, just like it was for the UOUC process. Especially because we know, and I think I know, that community conversations about limited haulers or single haulers really politically fraught.
Okay, so I should just go out of it?
I think we should just talk. Kind of what I think we are. We need to find what we're being left out of. You asked us a question.
You answer my question?
Yeah,
Like, how do we reach the community?
oh, you said we should be left out of it. Left out of what?
Like, if you, like, I guess I don't know. I don't know how y'all wanna be involved in waste diversion,
Oh,
if it's not this. Because this is the most natural ridge in my mind, but I'm more than willing to hear other opportunities that you see, but like, I actually think it's my job to write policy as a subject matter expert. Maybe you review it, maybe you write a support letter to council and help me in that regard, but like, I usually like figure out with other experts after like doing a ton of different research and outreach on how to write an ordinance or do something like that.
and we
Versus
just
like,
provide options to the public, or like, we don't need to say, Well, we could say we're presenting this to city council. That's what we're
I
presenting.
mean, like TMB tables at every single meet greet meeting. Their members
Sorry,
sit,
what did you say?
the Transportation Mobility Board. They sit there and they talk to community members about the issues they see with transportation. I don't see why there's any reason that if y'all wanted to, you couldn't do the same thing. Now, if none of you want to and you're like, this is crap, that's fair.
I think that's good.
But I think the fact that other boards do this and there is a precedent for it, I think that you have a lot more power than you think you do.
Why can't we present the problem and the issues? But not what we think is the solution.
I think I've lost the thread.
Well, and for me, I feel like there's a disconnect between like maybe what this activity kind of led us to, which is planning an event versus saying, hey, here's the meet, greet and need. Would y'all like an opportunity to have a table at that? That feels like pretty different to me.
Those
from-
could, I mean, yeah, those totally could be different. It could also be, maybe I was also thinking like, what if y'all wanted to turn and like work on one of the events and make it zero waste that I already have and just like, if you had an idea for like a business you'd worked with, let me know that you were like, I really liked their glassware. I work with them professionally. Like, it doesn't have to be that y'all are sitting there calling people and like doing the grunt work. I would still do that. I think it's just like the ideation around like the best way to reach community. Are they coming to meet, greet, needs or not? Is that the gap that we're filling? Is it like that we need to go to the community college or that we need to go to like is it that or?
Well, I think there's also like, I'm not a communication expert. And so like that question, like maybe I have ideas around it, but when it comes to the statistics of who's not getting certain information, I don't feel well informed enough to
Totally fair.
have an opinion on that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair.
I have a city communications department, and part of their job is to do exactly what we're talking about, right? Community outreach, get the message out, do it in a way that's effective and
So they're doing it. They're doing it on the Littleton report. They're doing it on the online report. They're doing it on their social media. They're putting it on Main Street. I think what I'm trying to figure out is still a problem. Like there's a problem. People come to council and they're so upset that they don't know something and they haven't heard about it and they don't understand it and it's not talked about and they don't have input. And so I'm trying to sort of figure out like, is there a way for me to work in this space and bring people with me?
yeah, I think the ULUC process is very good at how we do it, right?
So
Once the policy direction is there, we formalize the community outreach. And it's kind of an all hands on deck thing, you know, city managers involved, communications department involved.
right. I think the biggest thing that I've sort of been tasked with these things, but I don't really have that breadth of resources, so I'm getting creative. Like they still task these as priorities, like I've been told by city manager's office, I'll probably be told by council that it's a priority. It's a priority for me among like 6 things I'm doing. And comms is also, like, we're short-staffed across the board. So I'm trying to figure out, while you say it's an all hands on deck thing, it's like, yes, and how could I figure out if there's like ways, like really creative ways to like plug in? I don't know. It's a big question. That's why I tried to narrow it on an event, because I was like, the question itself is overwhelming. Like, how do you reach people that might be unreachable, but have trash?
Well, I mean, if the essence of what you're asking, like there's a city protocol for how to, you know, implement a communication plan around an adopted ordinance, then, and you want to make sure the messaging is effective in reaching different groups, then what you're asking us isn't really about the event itself as much. I mean, an event could be part of it, but you're kind of asking,
I've identified a
what are the
problem.
messages to inform people, and get ahead of it? And what are ways to reach people that perhaps the city communications department isn't reaching, that are still within that box of, these are things the city does. you know, and then perhaps there is a plug-in for us to be involved at a tabling event or something, you know, or some of us go volunteer at the recycling event that's happening, you know, already or something. So, I think it's just getting clear on how we can and should plug into the existing structure that's already in place.
Cause I'm gonna go through all of the normal comms channels. I just feel like I've noticed that that is not enough for community members. So trying to figure out, or it's not reaching everyone, or not everyone has the time or the, you know, resources to be able to sit there and read the very riveting online Littleton report, right? Like, it's not top of mind for them. They get 20 newsletters a day from all of these different organizations. Is this the one they're gonna pick, right? So it's like figuring out, is it flyering at like somewhere like Trailmark, or is that totally off the mark then? Cause then, you know, the whole waste thing, I keep going back to that, but I think it's just sort of figuring out how to reach these people. I'm not necessarily asking y'all to go out and do it, just like, are there places in the community where you see these gaps, where you talk to people and they have no idea what's going on? I don't know how an average
Well,
Joe.
maybe that's the question to ask versus what we did today is, where are the holes in the city's communications department as it relates to that particular issue? You know, where can we see holes and how might we help them plug them or something? I mean,
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry, but yeah, this might have been off the mark.
No, it's a good start.
I think
Yes,
that
or something.
this is a good thing.
Yeah.
I think it's just two parallel tracks. You know, implementing an ordinance, communication plan, and holding a community event communication plan. Like that may be just an annual event that doesn't necessarily relate to the ordinance directly.
Yeah. Or maybe like if we had that event, like having that sorting table where someone could like physically remove the things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought about like an online sorting tool too, but I don't know if anyone would ever use it. Like if there's a QR code where you could like go onto a website and like play a game where you like try to guess where it goes and which bin. I don't know if anyone would ever play that, but.
Well, I feel like that also could vary depending on which hauler you have.
Well, that's the issue, is it would have to be after like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. So I mean, I guess maybe my question for y'all is like, so we've identified these things as priorities. I've been trying to figure out like, how does this board fit into these priorities and like, where do you see your role? So like, I sort of, this meeting like pushed to where I thought it was, but where do you think it is? Like, what do you wanna do? So we've identified this, circling back on the operating agreement, and I think it'll be a lot clearer for the hazard or for the climate risk and vulnerability assessment, because I'll probably have the consultant come in. We'll probably do like some mapping stuff as like a stakeholder group, because then that would like help inform the plan if that's interesting to y'all. They'll also have different community members do that too, like in community groups. So I think that one will be more clear, but like, yeah, how, like, what do y'all see as like the way that you want to be involved?
I mean, I know ways that I imagine us involved is like, yes, you're the policy expert on some of those things, but when it comes to licensing, being informed and like assisting with like what is included in a licensing agreement, for example, which I obviously wouldn't happen today or even next month, but like, you know, something like that where we're, you know, advisors to the policy that is happening.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's not always gonna be like like what we're working on, like what actually is helpful.
Yeah.
Because I was asked that question too, like what's actually helpful. It's helpful sometimes, and I'll keep doing it, but I'm not always bringing something. I don't know if there's like other ways y'all envision your role.
What were the, I think I missed that meeting too. I read the notes or agenda or whatever, but, what were the priorities? The climate and resiliency plan oversight?
I think
It
we're,
was the, waste mitigation plan,
and I think, so I want to have the grounds manager come in and circle back on the operating agreement and really sort of get back up to speed on that. She has not been here long enough to feel like she really wants to be prepared to talk to y'all and like watch all the sessions before she comes back and understands before going into those negotiations, but I really want her to come back and work with y'all on that too. And so that one's actually like really pretty actually straightforward. It's more the other two that I'm not, because I will have things I wanna bring back that are all policy related that relate to waste, but in these like, you know, lull periods where we're like, do we still wanna meet? We don't have to meet every month. Like, I don't,
well, one
Yeah.
question I have and, is like, about plans, like, here's a for instance, I think, wasn't ESB inputting like on the Geneva Village plan or something? I mean, just plans that are underway in the community.
so like I could bring in people internally.
Well, input along the way into a plan, whether it's a parks plan or a redevelopment, you know, plan for affordable housing or whatever. I mean, there's some environmental aspect to each of these plans where, I mean, we could be a stakeholder. There's city stakeholders, there's community stakeholders that input into a plan, but any plan that's you know, being undertaken in the city, I would think there's a point, you know, certainly as it overlaps with greenhouse gas resiliency,
I can connect anything we want.
right, exactly. But I would think a look at it, an input on it, you know, maybe some improvements on it. That's perhaps something, those things are ongoing outside of us, but in parallel, so that's just something we could add to our list and should, I would think, so.
Yeah. I don't know if it's of interest, but they're going under like design for the service center. I know it's, no one wants to talk about like a public works redesign, but they're talking about hiring an architect and I've been like sitting there like screaming like, just remember these things, but it's one of those things where I'm like, maybe it would be helpful for them to hear from y'all, to hear about the reasons why these plans are important. If this is like of interest to y'all, the thing is it's gonna be, right, it's not necessarily quite as like creative as you're like picking all these things, but I can tell you all the things that are going on and try to get us, I'm really trying to get in front of them because, you know, I've been here about a year, so I'm starting to finally get into the, like, something's actually being planned and not already a done deal. So like, what does that look like?
Well, I think to your point,
Yeah,
bringing in
there is a
people,
time where you can impact it. It can't be at the final plan. It has to be.
bringing in people from those other areas to chat with us and present on, you know, the in progress project or
Yes.
plan or whatever, I think is great.
Yeah.
So too, it's good.
Yeah, I also have been like screaming about the lights downtown. That's another fun one. None of them are LED and they all point up, which is really bad for light pollution. Like those, and everyone likes the look of them is the problem.
No, they
The
don't.
problem, but apparently they're iconic. But they are not great for safety either because they don't provide light. So like they're looking at, when they do downtown, I was like, are you looking at figuring out how to do the literal wiring underneath for better lights that can support LEDs? And they're like, they're not gonna look as pretty. And I'm like, well, to hear from a board like you about the environmental impacts of those things, I'm not sure if that's like where you see your role and what you wanna do, but I would love like to be able to push the needle on things that he's already doing.
I think our time would be better spent there than trying to brainstorm like
Okay.
education and communication, which should be done, I think, you know, some pointed out through the communication department
Okay.
more frequently than. And if now, that being said, again, if there's an opportunity to join tabling at something, then that's great, but I don't think that should be, you know, one of the top priorities.
Okay. Well, I can see if I can bring in someone from the plan for the service center. If we want to go building electrification.
I'm not sure, I don't want any say in the outreach. Or any
Yeah.
overview of outreach. I think would be nice, not the developer.
Maybe I could get comms to bring in some of like the messaging that I'm thinking of them doing after the plan is adopted, so like there's a deadline right after for the print report that goes out in November, and maybe y'all could see if the language looks like it's succinct enough that you're gonna read it and easy enough that you'll understand what this plan is now that it's adopted and what it means.
And what their plan, timeline, frequency, targets, audience, I mean,
Yeah,
communication plan has an action side to it. That would be good to hear too.
okay. And then I don't know what role y'all want in the climate risk and vulnerability assessment. That would probably be if you wanted to be a stakeholder. Like if you wanted to be a stakeholder group where we like had a workshop that's similar to what we do for a community group. If you would prefer to like just decide if you want to join a community group on the side, if you like the level of involvement. The RFP did go out last week. Got your edits, those were great. So we're like looking forward to that and hopefully gonna have someone to start January 2026 so I've been talking to Arapahoe County, Jefferson County, Douglas County, as well as South Metro Fire, South Suburban, South Platte Renew, Mile High Flood District, Island Canal Conservancy, just to get everyone in one room, as well as Sheridan and Englewood, of like talking about all of the current hazard and risk mitigation plans, figuring out if there's like a thread to like combine these, and then also doing like pretty robust community engagement in English and Spanish. It's kind of a big ask, but it's gonna be very different from a lot of the other plans, because I really do want it to be community driven. And so if that is appealing, that you're either like looking at the plan that the consultant comes up with and you're like, I think that's a good community outreach plan, like you should do that. Or if you want like to be a stakeholder itself, that could be something that you do too.
I mean, go ahead. No.
Sorry, I was gonna say, I apologize if I missed the meeting where we did sort of a group resetting of priorities, but to the extent we're sounding or feeling adrift, I don't want us to reinvent the wheel, and I just want us to revert time to all of the foundation laying work we did in the action plan and just pick what's next on the list and do it, right? If we've got, we supported agriculture on that list, and we've got some water initiatives on that list. I mean, if you know, we've done for the moment what we need to do with waste diversion, I think we need to reach far to find out what our next set of projects should be. And I also don't think that we exhaust our bandwidth by doing what LaDonna's suggesting. I mean, I think that's important work for our board to be doing, to the extent that things happening on council and in the city have sort of environmental and sustainability implications. You know, let's weigh in, right? Let's craft a policy memorandum with our recommendations to council, right? But we will still have plenty of space in our meetings to do heavier lifts, which is where we need to be, I think, focusing our time and energies. And I think we've already sort of mapped that out for ourselves in the action plan. There's top line goals that we haven't
I mean,
touched
I will
yet.
say the group that created that action plan is fundamentally changed, and you've 90 points in that action plan, so I don't,
No,
maybe that's what we tried to narrow on.
The beginning, it says, here's our priority. Do
Oh, the 9 points at the beginning.
yeah.
Oh, okay. I mean, yeah, on there is. We just talked about the operating agreement, which I'm hoping to get Diana in for. I have no idea, we haven't revisited the ag stuff. Cause I think you've missed a couple meetings, Scott, so that no one's really brought it up, but I'm happy.
It was really, it was just Damien came in, right? Was it?
Yeah, no, yeah, I'm more than happy to figure out how to do some of that work that Damien was talking about. I do think it's not gonna be the policy work that you're talking about for quite some time. Until we would get to that stage is
Something else.
my understanding too.
short list of top priorities for the
Yeah.
for the group.
I mean, one of them is like, get people out of cars. Do you wanna meet with the Transportation Mobility Board? Always on the table. They would love to meet with y'all. Like there's, like if y'all wanna shout out what those topics are, you can. We came up with some last time, but.
Yeah, what we came up with last month.
Mhm.
we didn't know yet, but it's still like,
I mean, yeah, so that's what I was trying to ask, how y'all wanted to be involved in the climate risk and vulnerability assessment.
I think it maybe understanding what is involved in being a stakeholder, because if it's just, it makes sense to me for this group to be a stakeholder, but then is that, does that look like them just coming to this meeting once and doing a, exercise with us? Then like, yeah, I think that totally makes sense. But is it,
It's probably just coming to this meeting once and doing an exercise with you, but it would probably be something where they're like pulling up, like they're probably gonna do some type of asset mapping, and it's also gonna be very similar to what we would do with like a community stakeholder group, but they would probably repeat the exercise here, tailor it a little differently. At some point, it probably will go to council for adoption, and that would be a different thing where you could be a stakeholder and talking to council about why the plan's important, and you let the plan, and you can join as a community member in one of those groups instead. It just kind of depends on the level of involvement y'all want. Do
how
you,
can we have the most significant role?
if,
Sorry to point out.
yeah, we are
Yeah.
a couple minutes past time.
yeah, we can wrap up. I can touch base with our chair and vice chair and ask like how they wanna proceed for agenda setting.
I
There's
think
a meeting with the transportation. That sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we can inject environmental stewardship into what they're doing. That's great.
so.
They're doing a master plan. The
Wow.
not the vulnerability board,
Check.
the transportation master plan, and so like, how do y'all wanna be involved in that process, if at all? That's like 2 or 3 of the big ones I think are around transportation.
So with the climate, how can we have the most significant role? Is there a suggestion from? Is it being a stakeholder or being something else?
I mean, in terms of climate risk and vulnerability, I mean, it depends, honestly, we have so many topics we could cover, it depends on your interest in it. Like I'll have plenty without you, I would love to have your opinion either way, like I know
I
that's
think being
not.
a stakeholder in some capacity, but we can talk more about that, I think, because also considering that like a contractor won't even be designated until January, I think we have, a couple more meetings.
Yeah.
If we want to have that as an agenda item on how we want to be involved, I think that makes sense.
Yeah, and if you have any agenda recommendations or like what you want out of these meetings, like please email me and I'll talk to the chair and vice chair about agenda setting and figuring it out, so maybe we'll touch base about that, so.
Okay, but it is 8:33, so
We can.
I will go ahead and adjourn